We're live. We're live. Here we are, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's the Trump Tyranny Tracker. We're back after a day off. My responsibility. I had to do some things in life. You know, life catches up with you and you get deadlines. Got to fill them in. So it's good to be with you, everybody. And good to be with you, Olga. You have been so busy. The news is not stopping.
I actually am on a rampage today. So this tracker today is going to be a little bit extra spicy because I am right now fuming on several fronts. So
Anything that's
yeah.
not in the tracker already? Anything you want to mention that's
No, I made sure that
there is.
these are the things we will focus on because I mean this is absolutely outrageous what is happening.
Hi, Arlene Mack. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Hi, everybody else. We had a great session on Tuesday night, the first of our authoritarianism 101, and that was really incredible to hear from everybody, from where they are, from their perspectives. Everyone's got a story to tell, and a lot of people focused on the protests this week. So, it feels to me like these protests are going to be big and expansive, and in every corner of America.
Yeah, and you remember I told you a few months ago that, when we had one of these lives, that this is going to be a summer of protest.
Mm.
And I mean, this is just the beginning. Right now, there are literally, no pun intended, spreading like wildfire across the country. And I mean, this is going to be definitely a summer of protest. I mean,
Yeah,
we're going to, this is the beginning.
someone likened it to the long hot summer, which was I think 1967, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was 57, but that period of rioting in LA is going to be very similar, they think, to what's expected this summer. But it's going to be much bigger, of course, because the stakes are so much bigger. Let's get
And
into yeah. Sorry.
sorry, I just want to add one thing that the media finally caught up because they were so focused on the rioting that they really were feeding this regime with this disinformation. And yes, there are violent acts, but LA is 500 square
Yeah,
miles, if not more. This is taking place, you know, in a few square miles.
yeah,
The actual, things that we've seen with burning of cars and everything. I mean, these are isolated incidents, maybe 100 people responsible out of, a
mm,
state that has, what, 30 million
30 million people.
people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the media finally caught up and realized, like, to identify this is happening isolated and within a few blocks radius, and that, this is not riots. The majority, 99.9% people are protesting peacefully and whatnot. And then you have obviously the bad apples who are, setting cars on fire. This is where we have law enforcement to arrest
yeah.
these people.
And the same thing with looting. It happens all the time, really, in LA, but not as much as it's happening now. But that was
Yeah,
one
that's
incident,
what
and nobody.
LAPD is
Yeah,
for.
yeah, and they do a very good job of doing it. It's day 142 of of the tracker, and we have so many big stories. Let's begin now with the U.S. military authorizing um, temporarily detain protests. I'm beginning to get the things of a migraine, so I'm going to try to do this. But if I have to stop, you'll have to pick it up. Major General Scott Sherman has confirmed that National Guard troops and Marines deployed to LA can now temporarily detain protesters during ICE operations. Unbelievable. Around 500 Guard troops have been trained to provide force protection during immigration raids. California officials have filed suit arguing that this violates state sovereignty and constitutional limits on military deployment against civilians.
Yeah, so now you see Trump again using LA as a test case, immigrants are a test case, and you see now him providing this expansive power to the military. I mean, the National Guard, first of all, has no business being there unless it's invoked by the state. The fact that you're going to have National Guard, and they were detaining people yesterday. LAPD has it under control. You have LAPD, you have the sheriffs, you have Highway Patrol. I mean, you have a lot of law enforcement there. There's absolutely no reason to use National Guard to detain people, or to use Marines to detain people, or to use either any military branch to go on, ICE raids across the country. But the bigger problem is two things. One, that Trump is conditioning the Americans to seeing military and tanks and, Black Hawks in the streets. That's one. And two, we really look like a banana republic. I found out yesterday from Russian news, because I monitor their news all day, and on the news feed it popped up that now they call it special forces. It's, our military, that they're preparing to deploy to 5 states preemptively. I was like, oh, this has to be bullshit. Go check and find out an American source, sure enough, NBC and a few others were confirming that they want to send these National Guard and, our military across other states in
Well,
U.S.
I'd heard
So,
Texas was one of those, but are there others? Do you know which ones in
well,
particular?
Texas is a little bit different
Okay.
because Texas, the Abbott
Yeah.
invoked the National
Yeah.
Guard, so it's his business, it's
Yeah.
his state. But the other states were New York,
Mm.
um, what else? Colorado, I believe. Um,
Gonna say Oregon. I'm sure you're gonna say Oregon, but I
I
don't know
think
which other.
maybe, and I know definitely they wanted to send to Chicago. The fact that the Russians are paying attention to this and the fact that, you have the whole world paying attention as our, countries becoming a military police state.
There's just no reason to send in the Marines. There's no reason to send in the National Guard. There's nothing happening to warrant anything like that. And if the states aren't asking for it, and there's no, the stuff you're seeing on some news channels, as you point out, is so confined to just a few city blocks. And on
It's like a
and
corner of
yeah,
Almeida.
and
I mean, I've
some
seen that corner
yeah.
for 5 days now.
Exactly. That's the thing is you'll be showing the same burning vehicle. I think I've seen over and over again for a few days now. And you see the same people, running up and down the street for 5 days now. On Fox News, they keep repeating and recycling exactly the same video. But, and if you zoom in on something like that and you just
CNN
repeat it,
too.
it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like there's chaos in LA. But LA is massive. LA is, just huge. So for there to be any contention that they need the National Guard right now is just not true. But then detaining citizens is such a tell about
He's crossing.
authoritarianism.
Yep, he's crossing over. That's it.
Yeah.
He's crossing over and using unlawful orders to use our military to confront American citizens. We pay for this military, by the way. It's not that it's the government pays for it. We're paying all these people's salaries from our taxes. And now we need to have, this is Russia. This is what happens in Russia.
You just said crossing over, and I'm not sure people are going to completely understand it unless we just really spell it out as you do so well. What do you mean when you say he's crossing over? What's happening?
Because the military is not supposed to be used for domestic purposes. The Marines, when you sign up for the Marines, and God knows I have a lot of friends who served in the Marines and continue to serve, you are signing up to protect America from threats from abroad, not to fight Americans on American streets. The National Guard is given to every state. Every state has their National Guard. They are the ones who are supposed to use the National Guard when they feel there is a need. So if we do have in New York, something that gets out of control, that NYPD and, again, we have NYPD, we have a highway patrol, and we have several law enforcement agencies. If it gets out of control, they can request the governor to send in the National Guard. But this is by the state. This is the whole point of the state sovereignty. This is what Republicans all their life fought for, that the government, needs to stop overreaching, the federal government, and that the state sovereignty rights are important. This is, a point that can set off a civil war where you're going to have states, fighting federal government forces.
So
Um,
the crossing over is about the authoritarianism, about him just taking one of these steps that is so obviously an authoritarian step when you're taking the
there's so
military and using
many.
it against. Yes, but this is a really big one. To be calling the
Well,
military out against your citizens is not something you do in a democracy unless you're in an absolute total crisis, and we're not. So he's flexing his authoritarian powers here.
And the other one that is the most concerning on top of this military use is the fact of these unmasked ICE agents running around and grabbing people with no identification in unmarked cars. And I can tell you, I can't even, begin to tell you actually how many videos I have posted
Hmm.
over the past decade or so on Twitter of the same exact tactics in Russia, where, you have these thugs show up, grab someone off the street, put them into an unmarked car, and then you have the lawyers and family running around detention center to detention center trying to find out what happened to their family member. This is not supposed to happen. We are supposed to be a democracy in a democratic country. There's a reason that every, you know, agency has clear markings, a name. Some go as far as putting, the
Cameras,
officers cameras, but
uh,
officers
title.
ID number,
Okay, yes, yes.
like like their short ID number, so you can identify that way.
Hmm.
If there is an incident, you know that this person did it. Now these people are grabbing people off the street. Yesterday there was a ramming in California where ICE agents rammed the family, a toddler and husband and wife,
Hmm.
sprayed chemicals at the
Oh
car,
my gosh.
grabbed the guy out of the car, or he got out of the car and they grabbed him and they took off. Now LAPD is investigating as a hit and run, and whatever their stature is, of using a vehicle as a deadly weapon. I mean, why? Oh, what? This is LA that you have ICE agents ramming now cars because someone is brown.
I mean,
And it's just
it sounds like you're talking about a dystopian society that you only see in movies. You don't see
Russia.
this in reality.
No, you see it in Russia,
Russia, but yeah, you do see it in places like that. But
Syria.
it's so the going after kids. I'm sorry if I'm going off topic here, but going after children is such a signature of this. They seem to be going to schools. They seem to be going wherever they can find kids and traumatize them along the way. They seem to be doing it. It's not a bug. It's a feature of what they're doing. It's horrific.
And on top of that, yesterday there was another ICE raid. Guess where? A playground. A playground.
Yes, it's
They
happening.
detained two nannies. They detained two nannies who are, were with the kids and left the kids there. I mean, why are you traumatizing children by detaining nannies at a playground? I mean, is it the criminals? I mean, what harm are they doing in this society? And how are you endangering the kids that they're watching, leaving them there?
It's
To do, I
unbelievable.
mean, it's yes, and you said cruelty is the point. They want to desensitize us to the cruelty of stealing children, of separating families, and now Americans. I mean, if you are brown in this country, well, you will be targeted, and then good luck 10 hours spending in ICE custody, trying to prove you're an American, because this is, I mean, racial profiling up on steroids right now, what they're doing.
It's cruelty and it's fear, ultimately. It's make sure people stay at home, they don't protest, they don't dissent, they just cower in fear. That's the goal of all of this. It's so clear, but he really has crossed into an authoritarian government now, and it's unbelievable to behold that we're there. That's in the United States. Let's move to Fort Bragg, where internal messages reveal soldiers were carefully selected. This is unbelievable, based on political allegiance and to cheer Trump's attacks on political opponents during his official visit the other day. Orders specifically excluded fat soldiers and discouraged those critical of Trump from attending. Campaign merchandise was also sold on base, further violating military's neutrality protocols. But they lined up behind Trump, cheering and supporting his policies. I've never seen that at a military event in my entire career covering these kinds of things. I've never seen it.
No. And when I saw this, I mean, first of all, when I saw the video of them cheering and booing Biden, booing the media, I was like, what the fuck? I mean, literally, what the fuck? Again, we pay for the military with our money, not to take a political side. They're not supposed to take a political side. They're so oath is to the Constitution, not to any person. They're not supposed to, what they do with their private life, who they vote for when they go to the booth, that's a different story. But the fact that they were doing this, I said, oh my God, this looks staged like in Russia. I mean,
Mm.
literally, I can tell you everything in Russia is theater and spectacle. Everything that you watch is carefully curated, including who attends, how many, where they stand. I mean, it literally is a Broadway performance of, you know, evil. Um, and when I saw this, I was like, this is a scene from Russia. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't have American military normally doing this. Then this article comes out that they were handpicked. I mean, so this really is Russian tactics where you take a freaking dictator thug and you go through and you handpick the people who will appear around with their performance and give them the instructions on their performance.
There's a
And this
note.
is exactly what happened here. And the
Mhm.
fact that on top of it, that the instructions were you can't have fat people.
Yeah,
On top of that, like they have to look a certain way. So it's not just, I mean, and this is how it happens in Russia.
that's why it's just, it's stage managed. The whole thing is just to appear a certain way to give the appearance of support, but also to give the appearance of this kind of, this Americana kind of alpha male thing that they're trying to portray as being so idealistic. And, it's so not what Donald Trump really is. When you look at him, I mean, he's not exactly thin.
He's a
And
draft dodger. He
yeah,
didn't go to
right.
any war.
Hmm.
And it's more so than that. This is a psychological operation because
Hmm.
this is meant to cause more division and polarization
Hmm.
within the military, within American people, because you take this scene and any normal American will look at this and be disgusted with the military. Meanwhile, the military had the highest amount of support out of every institution in US, believe it or not. I don't know up to since the weekend, but the military is the most trusted institution in the United States. And when you taint it like this and you turn it into this disgusting political spectacle, and like I said, I wouldn't like this for anyone. I mean, I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican.
Hmm.
There is no place for politics when you're doing a speech and for the military to participate. And then also at the same time to cause the wedge within the military, to weaken the military from within. Because how do you think the people who did not want to participate in the spectacle feel about the colleagues they're working with? I mean, they're supposed to, if they get shipped overseas, say Trump does start, his nuclear war with Iran, and they get shipped overseas. I mean, how are you going to feel knowing your colleague was just there participating in this political, you know,
Theater.
theater?
Yeah. It's very true. It's going to create a lot of issues in the rank and file, and it's going to create more division. And at the end of the day, how the military holds up, it really matters. I mean, this will be the difference between a complete dictatorship and not. It's going to be the military finally who ultimately have to figure out whether they're going to go with this or not. And so it's really important that they stay united and that they keep hearing the right messages from their generals about staying non-political and staying united, because that is, of course, their allegiance is to the Constitution. It's not to him.
And just to add another one quick thing, this is the same for the National Guard and the Marines
Mm.
because they want to turn the National Guard, who are Americans, Californians, against them and to put them in a situation where you have protesters screaming at them, rightfully so, because they have no business
Yeah.
being there. This creates a division where then the military hates the American people hate the military, and you start causing this. And this is also psychological because then as you start breaking down the mentality and the psyche of the military, they'll have less, to hold them back from attacking Americans or shooting Americans if he orders like he did in 2020 to go. Why can't our military just
Yeah.
shoot the protesters? So
It's been his fantasy all along. Megan Johnson is saying on the chat here that she's seen a Craigslist ad, and I've seen it too, about them offering $1,000 to for people to attend the parade on the weekend. I'm not sure if I've seen the $1,000 in crypto piece of it, but they're needing people to show up at the parade, and they're offering people money to do that. It's it's we're back to those days. Do you think it's true? Is that a it could be
I don't
untrue?
know.
Okay.
These tactics, I don't know because they really could be true. Maybe it's not because I mean, frankly, I can right now go put a Craigslist ad and
Yeah.
write, oh,
Right.
five
Good point.
thousand dollars for a person,
It's a nice way to get an
so
ad. Yeah.
yeah, and at the same time, on the right, you see all these, Craigslist ads for people coming, and it says, make sure you're violent and this and that, to the LA protest. So these I don't put too much in because it's hard to verify unless you really track down the source of the ad and
Right.
find out who it is.
Right. Let's get into story number three, which is about Guantanamo. The document shows. Sorry, I'm having a hard. Actually, I might be able to not do this, but let's try. Documents show Trump is preparing to send thousands of undocumented migrants to Guantanamo Bay, including citizens from allied nations like Britain, France, Italy, and Ukraine. That's unbelievable. Without notifying their governments, up to 9,000 individuals are being screened for potential transfers to the notorious detention facility, with the White House officials pushing for mass arrests and deportations. This is something that's going to make the allies, well, they're not really allies anymore, but what it's going to create a lot of concern amongst anyone who's traveling to the United States or living in the United States with a foreign passport.
This actually is what has my blood boiling today.
Mm,
I mean, I am fuming. I already started a campaign on Twitter and Substack and Blue Sky, and I'm going to be spending my afternoon calling everyone,
mm,
senators, and I'm going to, see if I could get Ukrainian groups involved. What in the fuck?
mm.
Why are we taking Ukrainians who right now are under a genocidal war? British, Irish. I mean, you had to see the list. Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, France. I mean, literally every single one of our European allies, and sending them to Guantanamo, that is notorious for holding Al Qaeda terrorists.
Mm.
What are we doing here? I mean, this is something I think we can stop if enough noise is made and people call Congress. Call everyone and ask them, why are we sending our European allies, including Ukrainians who right now are under a genocidal war, being bombed every day
There-
to
This is they,
Guantanamo?
this is they're saying undocumented migrants, right? Is that the what you understand it to being? It's just undocumented, or do you think it's going to be
I don't
spread?
even understand what
Yeah,
undocumented is
yeah, I
because
don't either.
Ukrainians are here under TPS status, which he revoked and put back in place after the outcry. Now we don't even know it's currently there. But I mean, at this point, they're grabbing anyone and everyone to meet their quota. And Europeans, I mean, for the most part, come in on an ESTA visa. I mean, ESTA visa. They are allowed to stay in the country 90 days. So I'm not sure where he's getting these thousands of people, who these thousands of people are. The Washington Post, who reported this yesterday, saw internal documents but didn't make clear of what it is. But I'm positive there's no thousands of, you know, people here who are criminals from Europe and Ukraine that warrant a trip indefinitely to Guantanamo.
But there are people who do come to the United States and stay beyond their tourist visa. They stay because they want to be here
Deport
longer
them
or
back.
find work. Yeah, but it looks like they're going to try this other thing instead. I mean, that's what it reads like to me, is that they're going to be sending them to Guantanamo Bay instead of back to their hometowns. That
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
That deport them back. If you overstayed your visa and you came here as a German and stayed, 2 years instead of like 6 months, send them back to Germany.
Yeah.
Why are you causing? But this goes to the bigger point, not just cruelty of doing this. And I saw Ukrainians on the list. I mean, my blood. Europeans, I'm furious. But I mean, when I saw Ukrainians,
Mm.
really, you're going to take Ukrainians who right now, their family members are being, assaulted with terrorist attacks morning to night and send them to a freaking terrorist prison?
It's
Um,
unbelievable.
and the bigger thing is to cause the bigger wedge with our allies. Because I mean, these are all NATO countries or EU countries. And, the fact that you could just imagine how many foreign embassies are going to be, calling their US counterparts to say, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you sending our citizens to Guantanamo?
Well, we're just days away from the G7 in Alberta, and just a few days after that, it's the NATO summit. There's a lot coming up in the next week where those European allies are going to be flexing their muscle against the United States, and I'm sure this has got to do something to do with that. Just send a signal beforehand
And
to.
look, people keep putting on the chat while we're on that Alex Padilla was arrested.
Mm. Is that
So,
right?
while he was doing a speech. So I'm not sure what that is. Oh, but apparently something just happened also while we're in on this.
Um, there's nothing here about him being arrested. People can look at it, and we'll keep checking. Let's get into
Bullshit.
on the number 4 story, which is all about Russia's new ambassador to the United States, Alexander Darchev. I don't know how you say it. Described as a war criminal, he presented his credentials to Trump and pledged to restore ties with Washington, praising Trump's constructive approach over Biden's. Simultaneously, Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a celebratory Russia Day greeting, supporting Russia's people and their aspirations for a brighter future, and reaffirming America's desire for constructive engagement with Russia. He's watching a horror movie.
I I was part of my rampage. So yesterday I checked Russian news, and the Russian ambassador, and I posted it from the Russian news. I used Google Translate to show what they were reporting. That the Russian ambassador, basically gave a statement thanking Trump for finding time to meet him in his extremely busy day of, very busy of being a dictator,
Mhm.
to invite him to the White House. So this is not just posting credentials. He claims that Trump brought him to the White House. Our media, of course, still hasn't reported this because I don't know where they are. I guess, overwhelmed with all the other news. So this happened yesterday, late afternoon. It was already Moscow, morning in Moscow when they reported this, and it was around 5 o'clock our time or 6 o'clock our time. When this came through the news wire. And then on top of that, last night, which is my last probably tweet and one of the rare times I curse. Um, the State Department, Marco Rubio, put out a statement for Russia Day, um, basically wishing for a bright future, these constructive talks. Now, again, let me remind you, 2 days ago, Russia bombed a maternity hospital. They killed someone in a maternity hospital. They have been bombing Ukraine non-stop, day and night. They have been doing double tap attacks, which double tap means that they first bomb the residential building, and then as rescue workers go to try to find people in the rubble, they then bomb the rescue workers. And this is what he's doing, wishing the people a happy Russia Day. The only happy Russia Day there is that there's over 1 million of them who now have died or been incapacitated. That's literally the only happy Russia Day he should be wishing,
Putin is
because this.
also wants to go to war with NATO. He said he's going to go to war with NATO on the Baltics, and our Secretary of State is wishing everyone a happy Russia Day. I mean, this is it's beyond belief that this is happening. I've got some information on what happened with Padilla. He was removed apparently from a presentation or a speech by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. It's not an arrest, apparently. He's just removed from the event,
Okay.
and there's a brief detention during the incident, but he's not been arrested. So, but that's still
Okay.
something else. That the senator is being removed from his secretary's announcement. This is just another escalation, another turning your critics into your enemies. It's really beyond the pale what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody needs to amp it up. If I was Congress, I would be everywhere. Every Democrat should be at every event and let them remove them and let them arrest them because you know what the American people need to see and get so uncomfortable with seeing, scenes like this where this freaking sociopathic regime is yanking and going after opposition and arresting people for standing there or for, dissenting. And so, if I were Democrats in Congress, attend every single event, show your displeasure, voice your concerns, ask critical questions, because people need to wake up to what is happening. I mean, they're going, ramping up, going after Democrats and Democratic organizations. And, this is just another.
Every single story on the tracker today has been one of those authoritarian points of, of concern that and tactics that they employ, and we're seeing it in real time. It is frightening to watch, and yet that is what they want. They want us to be so scared. How
Yep.
do you combat the fear? How should we all combat the fear, Olga?
The fear is by uniting. We have all the numbers. Unity will overwhelm this, and maybe as a person alone, you feel scared to combat this. But then when you join, a coalition and coalitions connect with each other across states, and you have, a support group of every single town and city covered, then you band together and you push them back. And this is the same thing we saw with universities. Harvard, they were going after Harvard, and you have other universities who basically formed a pact, a coalition that you come for us. I mean, it's like a NATO pact for universities. You come for one of us, you come for all of us. So it's combating it is by joining together, and you feel less scared. If you go by yourself
Hmm.
to a protest, you might be more fearful. If you go with a group of 20 people from your town or from, an organization, then you're less scared because it's like, okay, take all 20 of us. And that's it.
This is new to, not new to Americans because we've had protests before, but in this scale where there's so much fear and so much intimidation happening against every citizen, it is new. But this has worked. Protests work. Resistance really works in other countries. Can you just share that with people so people can realize that every action they take now is going to lead us to a point where we can actually succeed against this authoritarianism?
Yeah, I mean, I always bring back up Ukraine.
Mhm.
Ukraine had two revolutions, two. And, the civil society is so organized that if someone gets arrested in Kiev, all the way on the other side of the country in Kharkiv, there will be a message going out, time to come out and protest for this. Everyone is interconnected. Everyone can mobilize within literally, an hour of time because you start getting text messages going around and getting people activated. And that's it. And this is what we need. We need to push back against it because, look, there is only so much of military and mercenaries and proud boys and all that other garbage that, Trump is calculating on. And there's only so few of them. This is a country of 330 million people. Even if you have 5 million people on the streets peacefully, and that's the key word, peaceful. You have to
Absolutely.
be extremely peaceful. You can't give them a reason. I condemn this burning of cars and you
Looting or
can
anything like that.
scream.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could scream at the National Guard. I mean, I'd be cursing them out if they were in front of my face too. But, you don't take bottles and start throwing it at them. You can
No.
use your words, you can use your actions. You can, frankly, like I gave an example, in Georgia. There were protests against their Russian regime, and they lined up these, riot thugs with their shields, and you have the iconic picture of a girl
Mhm.
going, not intimidated by them, walking up right in front of them and using their shield to put on lipstick. This is how you fight this back. You
Yeah.
make a mockery of them. And the more peaceful you are, the more you will see that these, people, if they do cross the line to start committing violence, this is going to really spiral around the world because these are the scenes. And if in Georgia, or Belarus, you won't see, well, Belarus you will, but if in Georgia you don't see, people standing like the girl put her lip gloss,
Mm,
now the riot, thugs didn't even flinch. Because what are they going to do? Start beating a girl for using their shield to put a lip gloss?
mm. Two things you
Well,
said that are really important. If anyone sees any violence this weekend, this is not something anyone can support. If you see anyone committing
no.
violence, throwing anything, make sure organizers know. Make sure those people are removed from the protest. We can't have these elements inside these marches because they're just agent provocateurs. They're there to cause crisis and to cause chaos. So please, if you see anything like that, shoot video. Make sure you know who the leaders are for every march and report that. And also, what the other thing you're saying is one thing we don't want is for these soldiers to turn against Americans because they don't want to be there any more than anybody else. This is a horrible situation, and we can't give them an excuse or a reason or anything else to start coming after the protesters. We just want to give them as much love in many ways and much support, but also saying you're failing in your duty by being here, and you should be saying no to this. That is the Trump Tyranny Tracker for day 142. Unbelievable amount of stories today, Olga. Do you want to talk a little bit about next Tuesday? We're talking about the second in our Authoritarianism 101 series.
Yeah, so and someone just said make a mockery of these things. Absolutely, Debbie, because this is what you have to do. You have to give them no reason to use force against you, and you have to really dance. Stand there with your, phone light shining. I mean, there are a million ways. Link arms. There are a million things to do that are peaceful, that can be funny, that is lighthearted because then, I mean, imagine a bunch of singing people or dancing people, and then the world sees images of tanks rolling over
Yeah,
them,
exactly.
So, I mean, this is very, very important, Debbie. Yeah, so we are doing a summer session on Authoritarianism 101. Last 2 weeks ago, we started with the psychology behind authoritarianism and why people are drawn to authoritarians. Last week, we focused on controlling the narrative, which is disinformation, rewriting of history, creating state, media and propaganda and whatnot. And then next week, we'll focus on two more tactics, and the session will last through the summer. Every Tuesday, I have a registration link pretty much in every tracker, and in the main, I put out a post that's on the Substack newsfeed. If you want to sign up, right now we are signing up, individually for each Tuesday. So right now there's a registration link live for next week. And this is our point, not only to just go through the tactics that dictators use so you could be prepared, but also give good effective resistance tools that are compiled that has his experiences, and then I can bring what worked in Ukraine, what worked in Georgia, and what worked in other countries when they were fighting these dictators.
I mean, talk
So
about not being
sign up.
alone. It's such a great process because we're getting to see everybody. You get to see other participants, other followers of Olga Lautman's Trump Tyranny Tracker and of Narativ.org. And it's a great experience for everyone. It was so nice to see everybody last Tuesday. We'll see you next Tuesday, but we'll also see you back tomorrow on the Trump Tyranny Tracker here on Substack. And I'll see you in 20 minutes on the 5 Stack with Dean Blundell with a very special guest coming along the show today. So we'll see you then in 20 minutes. Have a good day, Olga, and thanks everybody.
Bye. Thank you.